everyone. Here I am again with another Freedom to Feel conversation with Corry MacDonald. I will introduce her briefly, as I always do, and then I'll ask her the magic question. So, Corry MacDonald is a soul practitioner, spiritual hypnotherapist, energy healer, art therapist, heart speaker, advanced cognitive coach, and also the author of Life in Full Colors. Unlock your childlike curiosity to uncover and activate the creative intelligence you are. So I have the book here too that she sent it to me. It's so beautiful. I have some more notes. I have the notes there.
That's fun.
Um, so in your own words, who is Corey?
Oh, that's such a gorgeous question because that's a question I could answer it probably anew every moment. But
Yeah,
ultimately,
yeah,
I feel the answer today that's popping out is that I am the divine in a sweater and a pair of
yeah,
jeans, and
yeah,
uh, I am all and I am one, and that's the joy of the journey is uncovering that there's a little Corey who has a personality, but there's also a consciousness that I am, and
mm,
knowing that we are all one and the same of that. That's my answer in this
wow.
moment.
Yeah, I love that. And with that comes another question, a follow-up question. How did you uncover that more expensive and
Hmm.
the oneness in you?
Yeah, that is the journey, isn't it?
Yeah,
Suddenly I
yeah,
just thought of
yeah,
Joseph Campbell and the hero's
yeah,
journey,
yeah.
to go on that big circular journey and to slay
Mm,
the dragons, and
yeah.
yeah, like many of us who are in different guests that you have, the ones doing healing, even yourself, we've have come into this form forgetting who we are, the essence of who we are by design.
Right,
So
right, right.
yeah, it's always that story, but in different flavors and colors.
Yeah,
So the story started with a lot of childhood dysfunctional family and trauma, which left
yeah,
me quite full of flight. Flight was my
yeah,
go-to.
yeah,
So it was a
yeah,
journey of many years, and but all by design. It's like we can look back and see that, oh, by design. But it took. I'm also a stubborn soul. That when I learned my lessons, but wow, I resist and I flee for a while. So I
yeah,
actually needed to have a good shake up, as I
yeah,
wrote in my book, and we were talking
right.
there before we started. So but those
Right.
that happened in the earthquake when I was living in Japan in
Yeah,
2011. And yet, what a gift to when all of life is shaking, and even on the outer world is shaking. Sometimes that is the time where a soul will say,
right.
"There's got to be something better," or enough shaking is happening that a felt sense of that eternal vastness and silence
Right.
within gets recognized. And I'm so grateful that that is what
Yeah.
happened in my journey.
Wow. You know what you made me think? I had a conversation yesterday with another beautiful human being, which is,
Mhm.
I love the way you said that we are really fully divine and fully human, right? That's what it is. And I remember him talking about suffering. That suffering is essentially the way we wake up for the true reality that's here actually, that never left us. But we have, because of training, practice, and all the conditionings, we forgot of who we are. So, do you agree with this notion that suffering, that we suffer to the extent we need to wake up? That's really the question.
I hear that, and I feel for my personal journey, and for those many of those, almost all of those that I have the honor of working with, in it has been some sort of struggle or challenge and some
Yeah,
deep suffering, right?
yeah,
And it just makes me think, now I see a seed, that when we plant a seed, it's got to be crushed in order for it to grow and flourish. I do think this is a part of the design. However, what I'm noticing now, interestingly, when I work with younger ones, when I'm talking like 15, 16, wait, there is something gorgeous happening with this new energy and new earth, is that not not always is suffering necessary or heavy
Mm,
suffering necessary.
right.
So that's quite an interesting time to be alive. But for
Yeah.
sure, I would say uh, grace, by grace, that I feel we access, and often through some off 4x4ing, I call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
too long, and sometimes we just lift our hands and just say, "Oh my God, like help!" And actually, that's a mighty prayer.
Right.
Can be met. It's an opening, right?
Yeah, but you're saying this for some of us, not all of us, which is wonderful to hear because
It's an amazing time to be alive. Like I also
um,
work as a hypnotherapist, and some of
yeah,
the recently I've had young ones who are coming in, and they're quite, actually they recognize, they're very aware, and they're just ready to take that to another level, to almost upgrade. And
yeah,
yeah, maybe they have something a little bit hooked. It could be that they've lived less life, so less decades
yeah.
layering up
True, true.
of losing track of themselves. But it's a interesting notion. But I would say most people have to 4x4 a little bit.
You know, can I say unfortunately, right? Because it's almost like it's interesting when that happens to the realization of who we are, when we tap into it, then it's almost like the past disappears. Like I don't often think about the
Ah,
past and all the traumas I went through and all the suffering. It kind of dissolves. It's interesting to see even the memories of that.
hmm.
They soften. They are much softer now, which is very interesting to observe. There's something else that you mentioned earlier. You mentioned the word soul, and the first actually label that I read about you is the soul practitioner. The question is really, what is the soul to you? And do you separate the soul from other parts of ourselves in the sense of the ego and the higher self, or everything is connected in one essentially?
Oh, that's so gorgeous. There's so many different ideas about this, and just for in my experience of it, the soul. I guess I think about Gary Zukov talks about this soul as being this enormous like mothership,
Yeah.
and, and that each of us becomes squished down into like a little ship, and we're
Yeah.
following this mothership or not. When I talk about the 4x4, and the ship is can go off, so we have
Yeah.
our own personality, our own little self with a small s, but
Right.
it's still in essence back to that, we're this little story with the divine is still connected to the mothership. It just lost its way, and
Uh,
once it gets into
uh,
the flow of the mothership, well, whew, I mean, what a life and what a journey. But yeah, this enormous soul that mothership we're part of is the main, but we are little fractals of the whole. So
right.
something that
So,
helps me with that.
yeah. Yeah. That's how I understand too. So it's in a way, it is the identification, right, Corey?
Yeah.
That we identify with parts of ourselves in the sense of directing our attention to parts only because there's so much to be aware of because consciousness is limitless. So that makes sense to me. And being a human being, so I remember when I was, I think around 7 years old, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, "Oh, so you're back here in a female body." And it's not even the concept of reincarnation or all that, but that was a feeling. It was a very powerful feeling that I had been here before, and that's wow. Even stopped me now when I think about it because it was a really powerful thing without any teachings or any.
Yes, just pure knowing, pure
Yeah,
sensing. And we were talking about that felt sense. This is so
right,
powerful what you share. How gorgeous
right.
that your infinite intelligence was just giving you that absolute gift of knowingness. That is soul speaking to you.
So that is
Recognition,
soul.
yeah, recognition that, oh, I've been many personalities, and oh,
Yes.
I have this felt sense of this one. I have this recognition, and that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. All my cells started to.
Yes, no, thank you. Um, and then, and then even today, I was reading about labels, and then
Mm,
all of the sudden, like the attention went downstairs and upstairs here, and my husband was downstairs, and I heard he said something because we have a dog, and he said something out loud, and his voice sounded like a woman's voice, and then the thought was, what if he's the female and I'm the male? And that was
how
like the
cute.
reverse. It's almost like reversing everything for a second and
Yeah,
then seeing life completely different. That there's
yeah,
no separation, there's no gender, there's no colors in a way, but they are here. They feel real. But at the ultimate level, the way you speak of, which I love, is the this divine intelligence. What's the? You just said it earlier. I have it here somewhere.
yeah.
Oh
The
yeah, the
infinite.
innate divine
Yes.
intelligence. So
Yeah.
that is so expensive, and we can't label anything when tap
Mhm.
into that vast awareness. So I don't know. Have you had that experience? I'm sure I'm asking the question, but I'm sure you had. I just want to hear some more of that experience of feeling connected with everything and almost
Mhm.
losing it, or being scared for a moment. Like, how can this be?
This is so beautiful what you're speaking of, because that's often well, when I've had those experiences, what you're saying, there's a few things that have come through this gorgeous recognition of label dropping of how,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah,
oh, wow, yeah, there's a feminine, there's a masculine, all of that can go. We're
right,
just life meeting life here.
right,
And
right.
many things come to mind, like the during my hypnotherapy training, the realization, like so many of us who were in the training together, as we started to explore past lives and different soul personalities, we start to see that, oh, we interplayed and met each other before. And
Yeah.
oftentimes that is the way. In fact, it was my oldest son. I always was curious about hypnotherapy. I had no idea any of these modalities was come in my path. It's just that
Yeah.
the doors open, and I it was
Yeah.
through my son first went, and then clearly there was some issues with him and I that were overhangs, karmic overhangs from past lives.
Yes.
So then I got exploring it. But that's when I realized, like, it's what you just said is quite fun to imagine that actually my son and I had played roles of husband,
Mhm.
wife. We had played sisters when we
Yeah.
explored these, and
Yeah.
as all of us in the same. So then that just is so liberating, because
Yeah.
when we get so stuck and or entrenched in things in this little play, this little
Right.
life,
Right.
we can kind of fall back and say, wait a minute, there's so much more to this being in front of me. this
Right.
is this is a being in front of me. And actually this being in front of me is me.
Right. Yeah.
As you know, with the non-duality. So it's really it really allows for the excitement, but sometimes you're right. Sometimes there's been times, especially in nature, when
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really, I think maybe a lot of people can relate to this, where we start to really
Yeah.
release and become one with all of life.
Right.
It's so glorious and blissful and beautiful. But then if I have a layer of lack or um, not enough that's active,
Right.
it can instantly get fearful and just think, well, how can
Yes.
I, right? So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
incredible how we are human beings. So we can expand, but then we also have this conditioning that'll bring us back. And
Right.
right, the awareness of that is very much felt in my times that I've had that expand.
Right.
Yeah.
You're everything at the same time. It's such a the mind cannot comprehend, right? So, and you talk about the
Mhm.
conditions, of course, yeah, the little me that's still there. So, through the work you do, how is that released? What's the process that I know hypnotherapy? It's very powerful, and I have not
Yeah.
done it myself, but I have interviewed so many people, and it's one healing modality that, without even the experience, I know how powerful it is. I don't know how I know, but I get the energy from everyone that I talk.
Oh, beautiful.
hypnotherapist. It's just incredible. So how is the process, and is hypnotherapy for everyone, Corey?
No, it's not for everyone. I think that's a really important question that you asked. In fact, I just think that like all these modalities come through because we are wired also differently. And I think that, for example, in my family, it seemed to be that one of my children opened the door to it, and then he shifted so quickly because
Yeah.
what is exciting about hypnotherapy or any therapies that can take us out of that ruminating, analytical, conscious mind and access that subconscious, then we can, thinking about the tree on my book, instead of talking about all the current branches, okay, those current issues or struggles or branches are great portal points, but then we can like come right down to the core root and
Yeah.
get it, because we start to work with the subconscious by taking the conscious mind into to a place where it doesn't run the show. We just
Right.
get really busy, so it gets tired,
Right.
and then subconscious and conscious like sync up and work together in a full mind capacity. And actually, this is something that we have access to through art therapy, to anything,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
back in ancient Egypt, anything in the trance mode, right? Where we're just in that trance state. But the challenge with art therapy is a lot of people think they have to be an artist to
Yeah.
do art therapy.
It's
So
true.
there was always that teaching piece that I'd have to, and also really trying to relax people to say, no, it's not. It's moving energy onto a page. But a lot of
Yeah.
people have had critical voices or really challenging moments, maybe traumas around their
Yeah.
expression, whether it's their voice or whatever. So that can be really challenging. So that's when hypnotherapy became a natural progression to my toolkit, because yeah, for some people, hypnotherapy sounds amazing. Oh, sit back in a chair, relax. It's almost
Yeah.
like being guided on a journey. Yet, if someone is really in their linear logical mind, the idea of sitting back and closing their eyes and going on, that could be too much,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
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 And some, or if there's heavy trauma where no, I'm not safe to close my eyes and to just lay back and relax. So each one will know their way, but there's ways to do, there's ways to use storytelling or to keep
Mm,
the eyes open. Or so that's where I love creativity. We have the ability as humans to lean into how is someone feeling with this offering, and okay, maybe we can co-create another way. So different offshoots have been coming out when I work with clients. I just love it because I'm just the one on the side, the
yeah.
sidecar, and
Yeah.
everyone knows what they medicine they need. So yeah, it's
Mm,
I like having a few tools in my kit and just see what aligns best for each one.
right. That sounds beautiful to me because it's the work of a guide. So you're not really doing the work for anyone, just guiding their own energies to heal themselves, to
Yeah,
show them what they need to see, right? What they are
it's
ready for
so
see it
true.
to see it. Because not all of us are ready to see everything, especially at once.
That's
Yeah,
right. Like I think
right.
Gabor Mate's book now that just popped into my awareness when you said that, the wisdom of trauma.
Yeah,
And there's a wisdom there. There's a time when we're ready to go. And we knew that in our own stories, right? That
right,
there was a
right.
season where it was like, no way. I remember
Yeah.
one of my sisters just being quite on the consciousness journey. And I remember just telling her, oh my gosh, like, what are you talking about? I had no time for that because I was just driving through my life and controlling my life.
Right,
I was in very big, strong flight mode and frozen to the
yeah,
handlebars of my life. So it
yeah,
wasn't the time. However, all those little seeds, when a crack opened enough,
yeah,
they bore fruit. So you never know the just
yeah,
right time for a soul to open up.
right.
Mhm.
Oh my God, yeah. I I can love seeing you speak of the those past experiences where we're so deep into pain and suffering. So
Yeah,
I can relate to that, of course. But then when I see you now speaking of those experiences in such a light manner, like with this light energy to it. It's really beautiful. Yeah, thank you,
Mhm.
Corey, for being open to life, because that's what it
Oh,
takes, right? Being
it
open.
sure does. Yeah. Thank you for celebrating that. It is amazing. The other day I found an old passport and the kids, I got three kids, they were like, Mom, burn that. We were laughing. I looked so like, wow, you know, when someone is in so much pain, and
Yeah,
it was actually great
yeah,
that I had kept it in the way that we, with art therapy, that's how we map our growth. It's like, or
yeah,
when you read your old journals, you know, like you
right.
literally can see heaviness getting digested and pivoting for light. And
Yeah.
that was quite, I said, I'm going to keep this picture of before. It's good to
It's,
remember, yeah, and celebrate our growth. Yeah. Hmm.
you made me think about, I know you've been all over the world, actually. You lived in so many countries,
Yeah.
and Japan is one of them. And you made me think about, not made, but inspired me to think about, there's an art in Japan, I forgot the name, that the cracks of a pot, right? They create,
Yes.
instead of throwing them away, they just create art out of those cracks. There's
Yes.
a name, but I forgot the name. I'm not sure if
I
you.
want to say could see could. Oh, I
Yeah,
now I'm gonna
something
Google
like
it.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's bugging me that. But I know, and they fill it with gold.
Yes. Yeah. And it looks beautiful. And then the pot looks like more beautiful than before. So that's what you do. From what I love the way you say it, because it's exactly how you say it. Let me see where I find the yeah, you teach how to fill in, leverage, and upcycle challenging experiences, our ultimate creative life material, into wisdom for deep joy. I interviewed somebody about that, about the Japanese art, but it just came to me now. I didn't think about that.
Wow.
That's what it is. And that's kind of interesting that you lived in Japan. So that's,
That is like you wonder if kintsugi went into me. Like,
that's
you
it.
know, all these things are not by chance, right? It's all
No. Yeah.
interconnected. Wow.
Right. And then another question I want to ask, open question. I have too many questions. Did you set an intention when you wrote the book, Life in Full Colors?
Yeah.
Corey, did you set an intention? I would love to hear that.
Oh, I love that question. You know, I set an intention. Well, at first was I had so many people asking me, wow, could you write a book how we do this? Because the process to take something so heavy and undigested and upcycle it, like this Japanese pottery, we were doing that with crayons and paper. I mean, we use very simple materials so that the thinking mind doesn't think it's an art class where we have to make
Yeah.
something. No, we're literally calling our trauma little inner children to come and play this stuff out and through so that we
Yeah.
can actually claim it as ours and say, okay, I know what I don't want, so let's see what we do. So at first there was this asking about a book, and I love to write, and I was quite excited about that because I also thought, well, it's not usually the first creative modality I go to. I am usually picking up a brush or pushing
Yeah.
my thumb through clay. So I was intrigued by it. And then I started to write it. And then but I think you mentioned this
Mm,
download from our families, and I had a similar one. You got to work hard was looping through me. And
yeah.
so the joy of writing the book became this grind. And the energy was so dense, it just went flat. And I kind of, honestly, I am a bit of a not a person who will I'm a bit of a butterfly. I'll see
Yeah.
something here. So I
Yeah.
just kind of shut that laptop and let it be. And we did do another move. We moved from Bangkok to we left from Thailand to Dubai, and it wasn't until a few years later that I got to Dubai and again started everywhere I had to go. I had to be very creative because I had to
Yeah.
really listen and watch what is the culture, what works here, and just watch what opened up. And then again, people asked about you should write a book, and I said, I think I started a book.
Right.
But then it was a totally different flow because COVID happened, there was the
Wow.
lockdown, and I just needed to go somewhere quiet in the house with all the kids and James and the dog. And so I ended up in this little room out back, and I was going to meditate and in the mornings, and the sun streaming in, and I have a very strong clair audience, so it started to say, grab your laptop,
Yeah.
right? And just downloads came through, and it was so much fun to dovetail with source and to more receive the book. And the skeleton was there, the structure was there from before, but I had the experience of the difference of, I guess, back to the controlling the book
Yeah.
to flowing the book. And then
Yeah.
I knew that, okay, this is there's no problem with how, like, how do I publish this, and how will all the just right helpers came in the most interesting timing and ways. So that was really beautiful, that process of the book. And what it also allowed me to do was, because there was a gap of 5 years between when I started
Oh,
it
wow.
and where
Yeah.
it flowed through, then all these stories of beautiful people who I had the joy of walking beside in different situations. I got to contact, I had to reach out to them and say, listen, this book's coming through. How are you? What's alive for you now? And it
Yeah.
was actually a lot of reconnection and so much unity and joy. And all these people who, when they first met me, were very contained and didn't feel safe to express, saying, yes, put me in your book, use my
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I could celebrate that they had also grown like the tree on the cover, and they were expanding.
Mm,
So it was
mm.
like so much more than the book.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
That's what a lot of times we don't see what is behind, right? What's
Yeah,
being said or done. There's so much more.
so
And
much going on.
yeah, I feel that too. A lot of authors, they have these downloads and they write these beautiful books, but then, and they get so much from it. They transform themselves. Actually, the book writes itself, and then you're transformed by allowing it happen.
Yeah,
But then the mind comes back in and with the controlling kind of aspect, and then in expectations, trying to get a result from it. I need to sell this amount of copies, and I spent so much money. It was my case too with my own book. And then at some point you have to let go again. It's interesting.
yeah.
It is a journey of letting it go, of the surrender, isn't it, Corey?
You're right. I love how you said that. Right, that the whole journey of writing a book, everything comes up, right? And
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
your you're putting yourself out there and
right.
offering, right? So all of that being seen, all these limiting beliefs that we haven't faced before, they come up. So I
Yeah.
I really like what you say about that. And I think that's part of it, is at the end you realize, oh, it really isn't about where the
Mm,
sales, or where is it going to reach. And mine, especially coming out of COVID, I think I did my launch on a live stream.
yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of was like, oh, I see, it's the journey. It's not this end result, which was very, very helpful for me growing up with such a need to be the reach something or grab another ladder rung. Like, it's so freeing to drop that and to just
Yes.
allow life express itself for the joy of it. And now, even now, neat connections come through that I would have never thought. Because of this book, I was invited to
Right.
do a talk at the Antwerp Youth TEDx last year, and it was
Ah,
so,
yeah.
beautiful things like that. And through that, I found more soul family to train
Yes.
more with and to collaborate with. So it's all about the connections,
Mm,
really. Yeah.
yeah, that's what life is doing, isn't it? It really looks like it is the journey of healing, which to me is connected to spirituality. It's just such a beautiful journey. But we can't help and ask the question of what's the goal of all that? What is to expect in a sense of benefit per se to the conditioned body and mind when it comes to that, let's say the moment that we're about to lose the body or leave the body, then what would the flavor
Mm.
be left behind, the perfume of that journey?
Oh, what a beautiful question now, because I'm walking through this twice.
Yeah.
watching someone leave the body so beautifully. My father just transitioned to spirit a few
Yeah.
months ago, and thanking the universe that I had these tools. That the only thing I'm also energy healer. The only thing he wanted was energy.
Yeah.
So I could be at his side, and each day that was how we could let him help to fall in. I taught my mom also how to flow it. We all have these gifts since we were little. Like when you were looking in the mirror and you knew, I've been this woman before.
Right.
So we were just and so through this transitioning process, more of us forces expanding, and this crossing over journey for Dad was, even in his last weeks, I saw his will come up.
Yeah.
And I just had a beautiful session with a body worker who's also a very clear seer. And she
Yeah.
said, Corey, you need to go back to Canada because in a little while, your mom her soul is here calling you home. You have to do something to help your father complete his soul journey. It's about his will.
Mm,
My
yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
mind goes straight to money. The
Yeah.
will? Like, he
Oh, the will. Yeah. Yes.
and I was like, that's a money, right? Condition
Oh,
mind.
yes.
And because my dad was always worrying about the cost and the money so I'm thinking like that. How amazing I get there. And it's actually it's his will to choose
Mm,
for himself. My dad, bless him, he just so wanted to please everyone. So he wasn't able to say, this is me, this is my boundary, this is so through this exiting process though, and all the different people that were part of it, he was able to come through it by the end. And he literally at the end he chose literally pulled out all his tubes and said, I'm out. And the doctor
wow.
said, wow, there's very few souls who
Yeah.
will just do that and have that will. And I thought, wow, that's the will he actualized. And
Yes.
so the
Yeah.
human in me was broken to see, like aching to say goodbye to my father. But the part of me the divine part was just celebrating because I could see clearly that he was going through the veil and he could see his
Wow.
parents meeting him, and it was so incredible and inspiring. And I thought, this is something this is what the fragrance we want to leave back behind, that we can show our loved ones, we can show even the
Mm,
nurses and the doctors that
right.
actually soul can actualize itself right through the veil. And I hope
Wow.
this is the future for us with transitioning to spirit, that yes, there's an element that is heavy and I'm still grieving and I'm still crying at times when but then I'm also celebrating because he's coming very clearly actually as Blackbird to me, which is
Yeah.
why I've been painting
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, I see
And when I work with clients now, I really have his essence with me. And
that.
he's a very playful soul too, and a very, very strong soul. So
Yeah.
there is just no end. It's just a change of form. And that is something really exciting that I think more and more of us are starting to, as we become multisensory and really attuned, we can feel the essence of our loved ones around us in the whole continuum, which is gorgeous. So I think that is the longing for, as we awaken, that we can leave that perfume for
Yeah.
those who maybe don't know yet their expansive self, because it's a hell to lose someone when you only know the human. You
Right.
don't know that
Right.
there is a
Yeah.
whole essence that is
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. I got emotional for a second. So when you start talking about your father and something just kind of, I don't know why, because I don't know exactly. A lot of times you can't explain these things too, right, Corey?
No,
Like
it's
sometimes I get emotional throughout the interview. Something that the guests say or the energy that's being there's something there, and then the body just kind of gets
yes.
emotional. It
And
must,
actually, I'm celebrating your tears because I think what happened is, as a healer, and many of us healers, we have all these gorgeous tools. And again, back to Joseph Campbell, I
yeah,
come around. how we complete that journey is we come home and we offer our gifts. And I was so in the role of the healer that I
Yeah.
didn't process the little girl who lost her dad until a few
Right.
days ago, actually. And I went for
Oh, wow.
healing. And maybe why you're crying is I've been really letting myself cry
Ah,
and feel. And so I
yeah.
really find that gorgeous that here we're in other parts of the earth and we're attuned that
Yeah.
you're feeling into me. And
Yeah.
I really feel seen and heard by you and in the
Mm,
journey that
yeah.
I've been on. So thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So that really shows how everything's connected, isn't it? There's no
Nothing
separation.
separate. Nothing.
Isn't it funny? Now, oh, okay.
No, it's
So,
honoring these tears because actually, to be honest, like this is the thing is we didn't know we can cry together. We didn't
right?
know that we could express every color in the box of those crayons, that the heavy emotions don't have to be trapped and undigested. That actually what I learned through this healing session I went to with this beautiful healer is that my sadness, all our emotions are filled with information. And
Yeah,
that sadness was waiting for me to meet it because wow, what a gift
yeah.
to actually have actually come into a relationship with my father, because he was him and I signed up when we were up as
Yeah.
yourself to have a karmic relationship initially. We which was meaning we had some things to balance, and it was probably the hardest relationship. And for me to have this incredible experience of my dad actually gained awareness through his journey,
Yeah.
that he asked for energy healing, that I saw him one night even tapping. So he had obviously
Ah,
a
yeah,
video I sent. So to see
yeah,
that and to feel
yeah.
that was such a gift, because that doesn't always happen. Sometimes our karmic parent, they play that role in the play the
Until
whole
the
time
end. Yeah.
till the end, till the end. And so I just celebrated that. And so that sadness was talking to me to say, really, Corey, there's such a gift that you created this relationship, and it is something to mourn because it was so tender. And so that's really beautiful to feel your tears, because I was actually really deep in tears through the day before. It's evening while I'm hopping on here with
Right,
you in the time zone. So we're having this
right.
beautiful
Yeah.
allowing for
Yes.
sadness.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to allow sadness to arise,
okay to
right?
grieve. It's okay to mourn. Endings are always
Yes.
happening, and we can understand it from our
Yeah.
higher perspective. But then there's the human who emotes, and we came here to feel it
Yes.
all, and to
Yeah.
cry and or to rage, and that is holy, and that's also a holy moment too. So I'm
Yeah.
honoring anyone who's listening and feels this
Right.
need to have an expression of these emotions. It's so vital, because if we don't, we get stuck and frozen there, and we don't feel, we don't complete those lessons, so we stay stuck there, and we it becomes a bitter place, and we
Right.
don't we move from our winter into our spring so that we can
Mm,
keep growing. So
yeah.
I honor all those heavy emotions. The heavy ones are just essential as the light. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Beautifully said. And that's the reason why I host these video interviews too. That was the intention behind it, the freedom to feel. So I could be here and feel everything that is
Yes.
around me, and the guests and what they're saying and how they say it, my own feelings arising. So that really, I don't mention that, but that
Wow.
was the intention behind it. So I could be here and feel everything, even if it is could come across a bit embarrassing, and it's okay. It's
No, I
okay.
just honor it
Yeah.
all. And how gorgeous, you're right. This is the freedom to feel. I'm
Yes.
so grateful.
Yes. Yeah. And that, so the idea of freedom, would that be, I would love to hear from you a bit more, Corey. Is that the same? My idea is that letting everything be. So it goes back to surrender. That's really
Yeah.
what freedom is to me. Is that you do have the same idea? You do?
Allow, I like what you said, letting it be. And then I
Yeah,
heard the word allowing, and I think that is something that we can only access, this letting it to be and allowing. Back to when we think that we're just this little person, we have to
yeah,
control it all because it really feels alone. But
yes,
when there's a awakening enough of consciousness that actually there's a whole universal intelligence that is so brilliant and is so with me,
mm,
is me, is me.
yeah,
I'm a fractal of the whole. Then all of a sudden we can let go more, and then we can drop back and we can release
yes,
and surrender and
right,
allow.
right.
And the more we were speaking earlier, the more we do it, the more we have these beautiful serendipities or these
Yeah,
gorgeous things open up for
yes,
us that we can trust it more and more and more so that it
right,
becomes the natural way of being. Like I tell people now, I know in my day I love to create a plan. I love to create an outline, but I leave it really loose. Like when I'm doing a new
yeah,
painting, I just start with the
yeah,
main lines, and I
right,
just hold my plans so loosely because I leave that space for wonder and for universal forces to just delight and surprise me. I'll even ask, how are you going to surprise me today?
yeah, yeah.
Because then that
Wow,
thinking, ruminating mind has a question to solve. Okay, how are you going to,
yes,
you know, I upgrade the question,
yeah,
and I, oh, it's so gorgeous, the dovetailing that happens. You know, I think that I'm in the duty free shop the other day trying to pick a really nice, I know my husband loves a bottle of red wine, and I'm in Bulgaria of all places. And I'm in there trying to check a wine, and then two are really pulling me. And it's in art therapy, we say the same thing. People will say, I don't know which brush, I don't know which color. And I teach, don't think about it, just feel what's pulling you, which one
yeah,
you grab and you want to stick on your face.
yeah.
And with the wine, two were pulling me. So I said, oh no, what do I do? So I actually had a long pendulum necklace on. So I said, oh, I'll check after.
Yeah, and you do,
And,
right,
I,
right,
and
intuitively.
there's this guy watching me, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I was watching you." He said, are you working with energy?" And instantly, I meet a brother. He's this from Israel, and he's working with energy and water, and such a gorgeous connection in the duty free. So
Right,
all of us can just have these gorgeous intersections when we hold our plans more loosely and let the universe guide us and live us and flow us to where we truly long to be.
right. I'm listening to you and seeing the expressions too, even the way you speak. It kind of shows that this movement, moving the body. I love when I see that too. Almost like the body wants to participate in that
Yeah,
freedom. No, I
totally.
want to dance too. Yeah,
I want to dance to, like, yeah, and
right.
the body is the one that holds so much wisdom, and I just celebrate that we can connect to that because it's
Yeah, yeah,
really guiding us, you know. And if we allow it, back to the surrender, if we allow it, sometimes it'll
yeah,
just turn us into a new direction that we think, okay, and the mind starts to relax, and okay, you're full of wisdom, I can lead. Then they sync
right.
up together, and it becomes a very, very aligned life. It's
Yeah.
so much more fun.
I love that. Yeah, the body trusting the infinite intelligence or divine intelligence, as you call it, and then the body and mind kind of trusting divine intelligence. That sounds like a beautiful dance, doesn't it?
Amen.
So we're almost at the end, and I have lots of notes here. I want to mention that you are donating all the net proceeds from the sales of your book, Life in Full Colors, to the Vancouver Island Counseling Center for Immigrants and Refugees. So I know the why, but I want you to kind of say that today
Sure.
throughout this interview. I would like to understand, or the audience to understand, why you chose to do that, Corey.
Mm, thank you for sharing that because it's so dear to my heart. And we touched on it earlier when you shared how I have had this incredible journey where a source has had my family and I popping around the world. and living in many places, starting in Japan, and we had some time in Singapore, and then back to Japan, and then Thailand and Dubai, and now in Belgium, and eventually we'll be back in Canada, I can see.
Yeah.
And yet that has all been by choice and by a blessing of international work opening up. My husband works for international education, and I create work wherever I go with the modalities that I have. But there are so many people in the world who are displaced, and it is not by choice. And oh, just I just tear up because even my heritage, I'm Ukrainian and Polish, and I
Yeah.
have, you know, experienced and seen how we've brought relatives over to Canada, and how hard that journey is. And now there are people who, even when they need to leave their countries, they often are met with anti-immigrant sentiment. So they've gone through trauma and
Yeah.
lost so much, and then they aren't welcomed or given tools or hope even. So when I was writing the book and reaching out to all these beautiful people, I had this strong feeling that I've been given and blessed with so much. I would love to give back in some way. And I did. I put out a request to life,
Oh,
universe, to say,
yeah.
please dovetail me with the just right connection. And can you believe, in thanks to things like LinkedIn, or where we can reconnect, one of the from my cohort in art therapy school, she reached out to me, one of my classmates, and said, "Oh, I found you," and we reconnected. And I said, "What are you up to?" And she was working for VICCIR, and she said, "Corry, they're bringing in art therapy for the immigrants and refugees, and it's such a great gift because many are from Syria now, and they cannot speak, or especially children." And children think in metaphor. So art therapy is
Yeah.
a beautiful tool to release the pain and to
Right.
download news stories in, you know. And instantly I said, "Oh, I would love to co-create here." And so, and it was very special how universe does this, because I actually took my training while living in Japan. I took my training internationally in that part of Canada, in British Columbia. And so it's like another full circle moment, and you
Yeah.
think you can't make this stuff up.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm
Right.
so honored that, and it's such a gift to know that, so everyone who grabs the book, that we bless
Yeah.
the souls who are needing some care there too. So
Yeah.
it's a gift for everyone.
Yeah, I see that. And so that's really beautiful to recognize that interconnectedness again. So we are not doing this work, whatever I do, you do, and also many amazing people I meet. That shows the unconditional love really behind all this. It's really that what we want to see more in this reality, and
Mm.
that's what's missing, isn't it? That to being open, to open enough to see that we are all connected, that whatever we do benefits us, but also our family members, and then our community, and then the country, and then who knows, the entire world. So thank you for being aware and so conscious of that. It's truly beautiful, Corey.
Thank you so much.
So I want to also mention that your book, it's really, there's so much information there. It's so helpful for all of us. I know children can benefit, everyone can benefit from, by following the steps. You actually outline 7 steps to create a life in full colors. I would love for you to mention the steps, and then I want to make a comment about 2 of them, because I have a passage in your book which I'm going to be asking you to read a passage too. But there's 2 passages here that really caught my attention. There are lots of them, but I couldn't have all of them here, so I have them marked.
Oh, I would love to hear the passages that lit you up. Yeah, this steps that I love too that you mentioned this. I tell people, I'll often say, "Oh, I wish my kids could read a book like." I said, "Do the book with your kids," because The reason I wrote it is I would work with someone who was 7 and then someone who was 70, and we would still be doing this. So it's
Yeah.
alchemizing any heavy, any challenge, any pain point, and instead of pushing that away or feeling bad about it, seeing it as this gorgeous, what we said with the Japanese pottery, it's this potential as a portal to actually alchemize it and get the gift from it. So the steps are to first do that, to own it. When there's something that's heavier, just you're grinding on a pattern, it's like, oh, this is for me. Instead of, oh God, like this, to flip the mind to say,
Yeah.
this is mine. So to name it and claim it as your ultimate art material. And then once it's owned, there's a step that I teach on how to ask on it, ask higher questions on it, rather than, oh, why is this happening to me? If you ask, I think it was Michael Beckwith says it, well, you ask a higher question, you'll get a higher answer, because you are commanding with your vibration of your words. So to ask, what if this wasn't hell? What if this wasn't a problem? You don't got to know the answer. It can still feel horrible too. It doesn't mean you have to be like, the Buddha. You can still be in your pain, but you can ask, what if this was a gift? And this is something you could actually, don't even do art therapy. You can start doing that when something happens that just derails you. Or to try to lift yourself to a higher question. What if this wasn't a problem? And just let it go. Like you said, surrender. So that's to ask on it. And then the next thing is to act on it. So I teach a tool on how to ask on something, and then how to, before we ask on it, we have to receive the answer
from it
first. And there's a few processes that I teach on how to get more in the receptive mode, because when we had the story that we have to do this life all by ourselves, then we're not like wide open downloading these gifts, right? And I think I spent decades like shut off from it's always raining on us. So yeah, I give a little bit of help on how to do that creatively, to receive from it. And then we act on it. Once we get we receive it, we can take a step. And all we need is the first step. And there's a creative process on how you can just find your first step. The mind loves to see the whole bloody map, but it thinks so limited. It's just so limited. The journey is way juicier when you go with source. So once we act on it, then we do that enough, and it's what we touched on before, then we can start to expect it. We can expect things to work out for us. We can expect everything is aligned, and what we were touching on, everything's interconnected. So we're never alone, and it can all flow so differently. And then that's when we start to love it. We love the whole life. We have a happy acceptance of what is. Even if something looks like it's going south, it's like, oh, we just get more curious and we love it, rather than reacting and thinking, I'm in trouble and life is hard. So we start to shift our whole vibration. So you go from my passport photo of 2000 to this lighter version, which makes me smile, because I think I'm way younger at 51 than I did at 31 because of the joy. And then we shift to, from love it, we start to share it. And that is actually done mostly non-verbally. We just show up in who we are, in our beautiful human beingness. And people, it's a felt sense. They can just feel like, what? How is it that you can be in your joy on a Monday morning stuck in traffic? And it's not a thing like happy, happy, happy. It's this deep pulsing knowingness that all is aligned and all is interconnected. So all is well. And that's how we can share it. And if people ask, then I share. But I don't feel the need to have to convince anyone, because everyone's in their process at their just right time too.
Yeah. Wow, what a beautiful process, which is not just is beautiful to me. I tend to romanticize everything, of course, but it's so practical. It's practical. We can see the logic behind it too. The mind can understand, and the heart can just open up to it, because it's that making sense to body, mind, and soul. That's what the message is. to me, or the whole process. And then I love when in a book, the sections where you talk about the thinking mind, the feeling mind.
Yeah, that's so important. And I really wish, my vision is that we will learn this when we're children in school, that
Yeah,
we have this conscious thinking, linear, logical mind that we need. Like, we don't want to learn
yeah, yeah.
how to drink a cup of water every day. Like, we need patterns.
Right, right.
However, this is also only 5% of our mind is the conscious mind. Yet most of us in the Western world are operating in this almost all the time, which means we're not giving access to something that's like 5,000 times stronger. 95% of us is subconscious mind, and it's the mind that is more childlike. It's more chaotic. It's a bit messy. So actually, the conscious mind usually is saying, do not go down there. It's also connected to our body and heart. But actually, when we don't, it doesn't want you to go down there because it is so messy and chaotic, and there's a lot of feelings and emotions. All our memory files are down there. But at the same time, it's so essential because it's our envisioning self. It's all our creative mind is down there, and also there's new potentials there too. So when we can get them joined and trusting and working together, that's when we have whole mind power. So that's why things like hypnotherapy and art therapy that allow for that conscious mind to just chill for a bit so that we can bring this other one online and get so much more mind power. That's when we live a fully integrated mind and life, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I
Mm.
have um I have heard about the I think you mentioned in the book too about the scientific research, a study about the thinking heart. So the heart has its
Ah,
own right way of thinking. It doesn't use language, but it feels everything. And so that kind of, it's not just spirituality or not just positive thinking, but it's also science.
yeah, Heart Math Institute can measure
Yeah,
the
right.
electromagnetic field now of our thinking mind and our feeling mind, and our hearts are our feeling mind, and they're 5,000 times stronger electromagnetic field. That's so much power that we all have access to. But most of us were never taught that. We
Yeah,
are taught to kind of just shove those emotions down and do not go there because it's
yeah,
we don't have the tools. And actually, there is, like, it back to, there's a wisdom in that. It shouldn't be accessed until there's a good guide or there's some
mm,
sort of tools, and because we don't want
yeah,
to flood ourselves with undigested emotions that are from
right.
years back. So there's a beautiful rhythm to trusting when the
Yeah,
just right moment comes up, or when the just right person comes up. I think someone gave me an
yeah,
Eckhart Tolle book, and I
yeah,
just thought, okay, this feels good, trusting impulses, bit by
yeah,
bit. And then we
yeah.
awaken more and more, and we can go and access more and more to the feeling mind. Yeah.
That's true. I love that you mentioned that too, because it takes being ready to access all this information, integrated. It's just not, it doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, that's a beautiful, gentle reminder that we can all kind of open up to the process and not expect it to happen, the whole uncovering happen overnight. It's
That's
very
right.
gentle. Yeah, I love that. So I wanted to read. Do you have a passage too, Corey, that you'd like to read from the book?
You know what? I would love for you to read, because I sat before we met and I was kind
Yeah.
of sitting waiting to get a impulse, and I
Yeah.
I couldn't choose. And now I think, could you offer the passage and I get to be surprised by you?
Yes. So
Thank
this it was thank you. This was a passage on the first step. It has to do with the first step. Yes, own it. Where you write, change can only happen when we walk straight up to the very thing that is causing us pain, move into a place of responding rather than reacting, and claim it as our own. You said that in the very beginning, explaining it, own it. What really caught my attention here is the way you write, walk straight up to. the
Mm.
very thing that's causing us pain. And that's something that I have done throughout my life, little by little, of course, not at once. And it was very scary at so many levels. But that
Yeah.
speaks to me so powerfully when the way you write, actually. There are so many other passages here, but this one, for some reason, the body and the mind responded to it immediately, and I
Mm.
highlighted. And the other one was on love. Ah, that one, of course. Love, 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 unconditional love. You're right. The love we are looking at is the eternal wave of time and space emanating from source. Unconditional love, then, is the act of loving yourself in each and every time and space projection that shows up in front of you. So that almost goes back without knowing, without making that connection, like immediately the intellectual connection with facing our fears and loving ourselves unconditionally. They just merge with one another. That's exactly the same message, but being said in a different way. I just, what's not to love about it?
Oh, thank you. It's so delicious to hear you share and to hear all the connections that are coming through you that are
Yeah.
this is the thing, right? This is why we came. We came here to share and spark each other because we are all having this experience together in our
Yes.
different ways and
Yeah.
we all are able to spark one another and to really light each other to continue so that we
Yes.
can stop running away and we can just go right up to things and all of a
Mm,
sudden recognize, oh, this is how we recognize our beautiful divinity, that these limits that we put on ourselves, they just don't exist. They just don't
right.
exist. And then we celebrate these challenges, whether they're challenging situations or these annoying people, or they're actually just opportunities for us to see those
Mm,
edges of ourselves, to soften into it and realize I just
yeah.
got to walk right up to this and
Right.
move and into it. And then it's gone. It's like the monster under the bed. I remember
Right.
shining the flashlight for my son and saying, it's just your
Yeah.
dirty clothes under there. And the minute it's shine, it's completely the illusion is gone. And that's
Right.
it's so exciting to hear you pull that piece out that
Yeah.
I just flowed and to hear it anew through you, it's charging me up to walk through into anything that's feeling a little bit challenging for me now, because it's like you said,
Right.
it's a continual
Yeah.
process. It's a
It is.
constant unveiling, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, what a great thing to hear you
Yeah.
read.
Thank you. Thank you, Corey. Yeah, it is a practice, right? It's not something I remember trying to get somewhere that was really the goal per se, my spiritual path. I thought as a seeker that I wanted to get somewhere and stay there. I wanted to get to
Yeah,
joy and peace and all this and just never leave that place. But then it's interesting to know now that we can actually tap into what we are, but there's so much more to uncover at the level of body and mind because they have been conditioned for so long that
ah,
it takes time. I know it's almost it is an illusion, but it's still real for the body and the mind. So
It that's so
right,
well said, and and it's not just our own. I mean, we have ancestral. I think we can. The DNA holds what,
right,
7 generations. So
right,
sometimes I'm working with a client and we realize, wow, we just cleared out energy that wasn't even yours. That was your great grandfather. Like,
yeah,
so you know what I mean? Because we are so interconnected that we can
right,
absorb. So this is important what you speak of too.
right,
And you're right. I think that's also part of our evolution in our journey. In our journey is to at first, same thing. I remember thinking, okay, when I get there, because
yeah, right.
we only
That's
can take it from the place we were at. And when we started with this, mine was ladders. I'm going to get to this perfected place, right? And then I'm
right.
Virgo. We like to get it really right,
Yeah,
and it's so essential though. We have to go through that and realize, oh, that's also a little bit 4x4ing, but it's okay. There's tools within there too, and there's so much wisdom within there. And then it's like, I can drop that. Okay. But
Yeah.
it takes some journeying, and that is it. When we soften in and realize, oh, it's just an adventure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's okay that
Mm.
we had to go off road a little bit again, but I noticed that the off-roading becomes a lot less bumpy, and I course correct quicker now. So it's not that
Ah,
we never get
yeah.
it right, perfect, or there is
Right.
no, it's beautifully
Right.
there for us to taste and to sense everything. But it's that the bumps start to become softer, and right away, if I'm sure you have this too, you start to go off
Oh,
a bit,
yeah.
and you're, oh yeah, I can see that. So the
Right.
awareness grows, right? So that's really exciting to have that
Yeah.
GPS clearer. Yeah.
Right. To know how to return home, really. It's almost like we left home, which we never left, really, but then
Ah,
knowing how to go back to return home. So thank you so much for your contribution to this
mm,
reality, for the not the betterment of this reality. I would say the elevation of consciousness. That's really what we are looking into here, and not to kind of judge levels. There's no levels really. We don't want to think in that way, but it's a clear way of seeing reality, of seeing ourselves. It's just you helping with clarity, bringing clarity to this
mm.
reality. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you for opening the space to me and to so many that we can rise together. It's such a gift. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you. And it is beautiful to do it together. Yeah, that's my whole mantra. So before we say goodbye for today, what is one, if there's one message you would love to leave the whoever watches this video with, what
Yeah.
would that be?
Oh, I think it would be something that I express in the end of my book, and I just hear it come out of me all the time, is that is if ever there was a time, if ever there was a time that you had permission to move through each moment as the beautiful, radiant, fractal and PowerPoint of creative intelligence that you are, now is this time. And to
Yeah,
just discover that in your
yeah,
own way and
yeah,
enjoy the journey as best you can, and know that you are so necessary to shine as you are. We need
yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message. It's almost like a calling for all of us to become healers and spiritual teachers and enlightened beings, which is exactly what we are working with here, from what I see, a life itself as life. So thank you again for saying that. And I do want to ask you a technical question. What is the best place to find you? How can we find you online? What's the best place to go?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think the best place, if you're looking uh, for all the information about me and free resources, I have a ton of that on my site. Just go onto my website, which is creatinghealingwithcorry.com. And Corry is spelled Corry, like sorry. Very Canadian. We're always
Yes,
saying
sorry.
sorry. Take off the S and put on a C.
I like that. Yeah. See,
And on
okay.
LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, Corry MacDonald. And I'm not a Mick, I'm a Mac. I married a Mac, a big Mac.
That's funny. I love that too. The playfulness at the end there. That's yeah. See, light and playfulness, they go together.
You gotta
So
enjoy it.
I'll have the website on the video profile, so people when they
Thanks
go
so
there, they
much.
just can click. They'll see and it will be clickable. Thank you
Corry.
so much again for your presence, Corey, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Bye bye.